Back here on the show, Carmichael Dave off. You heard him earlier. He joined us from England, but he'll be back next week, 1 week from today. Joining us now, the great Sean Cunningham. Used to be with us. Yeah, we go with great. Can we go with great, Sean?
Yeah, I'm glad you do. I'm glad you're going with it, but I think it might be a little much.
A great shirt. Great shirt today, by the way.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, you like that?
Yeah. Nice look. This is early for you.
You ain't kidding, buddy. I'm usually more of the 8:45 to 9:30 variety of risers because I tie it on. I work a little late and then get after it most nights. But yeah this is it's a little early. Do I sound right?
Yeah, you sound great. We appreciate you doing this, getting up early.
No problem.
Yes, as of course, Sean has been in this business a long time, working now for Fox 40, reporter on all things. And Sean, let's just jump right into it with the Kings because rumors are abound, and I think it makes sense about the Kings trying to tweak this roster. How legit do you think the rumors are, and do you anticipate the Kings making a trade?
Oh boy, yeah, I think the rumors are certainly legit, and I think this front office has shown kind of a penchant to be an active one to kind of tie themselves to a lot of trade rumors and teams and just things out there. Monty McNair likes to use that term optionality, and anytime you can try to upgrade the roster, they want to. It's this ever evolving thing, and they're never done. And I think if you look at last year, with all the flurry of moves that were done around the league at the trade deadline, and the Kings were one of them. I mean, it was a smaller move. It was a very tertiary move in Kessler Edwards, but it wasn't really for a lack of trying, or lack of the inactivity didn't really signify anything. If it's not like they were making calls or anything. They were very active in trying to add pieces and see what could be done. But the reality is we kind of use that term playing with house money. They had a chemistry about them. They might have been a little bit ahead of their development in terms of maybe some of the success that they were experiencing. So the double down of that, add Sabonis, his extension in the offseason, and really kind of build off of that to really get this core what they have. You get through the first round of the playoffs and you kind of look at this team and say, okay, that they're a high-powered scoring team, equal opportunity. They're fast, but they have some flaws certainly, and some things that are certainly Achilles' heels, defense and size and athleticism certainly among them. And then you fast forward to now on January 9th, and you're about a month from the trade deadline, almost exactly a month from the trade deadline, and a lot of those problems are exactly the same. So I think, I would imagine this team will be pedal to the metal and trying to really add a piece that benefits them, and they're gonna. It may not ultimately end up be anything once the trade deadline hits, or even before that, but it won't be for a lack of trying.
Yeah, and I think they're in a tricky spot in the sense that I think they could do some things, Sean, around the edges that if they hit right, it could really help this team, or it could be a bigger move that maybe puts them more in legitimate threat of being a threat in the West. And I don't know exactly how they do the second one without maybe Keegan being in play, maybe Monk being in play. Do you think it's possible for them to make a significant move without moving either of those two pieces?
Yeah, I think it really depends on who you're asking.
Which team?
Well, I'd say just to any person, if you poll 100 people and you say, is somebody like Harrison Barnes or Kevin Huerter being, one of the starters on two of the starters on this Kings team, moving pieces like that to acquire something significant, would 100% of those people think that it was significant? Like, I think Kevin Huerter is a significant piece, at least on this Kings roster, and certainly Harrison Barnes to a certain extent as well, maybe to a lesser extent at certain times. But, can you package two of the things that you're really ultimately hoping to upgrade on your team? And can you bring in that piece? I would say probably not. But to me, I think they have visions of grandeur to go out and get somebody at least that is going to be this significant piece. Obviously the Pascal Siakam talks had been there. But I think, yes, it's hard to, turn some of one man's trash into a diamond. And I don't mean to call those guys trash, but it's
Right.
like you're talking about people that have kind of fallen out of the rotation, not fallen out of the rotation, but at least fallen out of favor a little bit. You're talking about play, especially if you look at like someone like Davion Mitchell, who had been out of the rotation. You see Kevin Herter, who's been benched, obviously for struggles that he has on the offensive end, and then obviously Harrison Barnes still plays a significant role, but obviously he's not a this big impactful offensive firepower weapon or anything like that they use. So if you're trying to keep Keegan Murray and the likes of Malik Monk, who's facing free agency at the end of the year, it's going to be difficult to try and get. And I think if in the Siakam example, Toronto knows what's on the table, Toronto knows what's not on the table, and just because the talks seem to be reported as if someone has pulled away, I mean, you're still a month away, and
Right.
a lot can change day to day. And if you get to the point where one team gets desperate, I just don't think that's going to be Toronto. They've already moved OG Anunoby. They brought in some quality pieces like RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly, and you might want to look at it. You might want to see what this looks like. And look, if you don't get anything for Pascal Siakam, that might be disappointing. But I think if you're a Raptors fan, you kind of like the pieces you got for a guy that was stepping into free agency that you might not have been able to keep anyway.
I don't know that you would know this answer, Sean, but I'll ask anyway. In the case of Siakam or someone like it, but we'll use Siakam because he is a free agent, and the Kings would run the risk of, if they traded for him, knowing that he could walk, in free agency. I would hope they would have some good plans or a good idea whether or not they could keep him, but let's just assume that's a scenario out there, or a player like him. Do you think the Kings, to use the word desperate, would be desperate enough to run that risk, not knowing if they got a significant player that's a free agent that they could lose them in the offseason, basically like a rental?
Yeah, like a rental. And I think if you're doing that, you're hoping to do so weeks in advance of the trade deadline. You may not have that luxury to be able to do that because you want to get as healthy of a sample size as possible. You want to get them around that great chemistry that you have with this team and really see if it works and really kind of land that strong impression of somebody like Siakam to get with your core piece. Trouble is, yeah, you run the risk of losing him. But I would say, this team would still ultimately have its core together in a move like that. And, at worst case, you're still shedding a ton of salary that you'll have to be able to go shopping and use in the offseason. So, yeah, it would be certainly a disappointment. And you'd like to have some sort of, tip of the hat that wink, wink, nudge, nudge that you'd like to keep said player. But the reality is I don't think you're going to get that guarantee.
Do you think their offseason biggest priority is Monk's free agency, or how do you think that impacts kind of their moves they're going to try to make?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's one that's a little tough to answer, and I think it depends on who you talk to, because I think there's probably a, I think there's probably a number in mind, and there's something that they're comfortable with, but I think there would ultimately have to be moves to be made to accommodate it. Of course, this team could also look at the success that they've had and say, all right, we could, you look around the league, if you're a contending team, or if you're one of those upper echelon teams that is, looking to sustain a lot of success going forward for the future, some of them are luxury tax teams. That's one thing that the Kings haven't been. So they can certainly dip into that if they so choose. It's tougher for those smaller markets to be able to do that. But I think Malik Monk is certainly somebody that they value. They're well aware of what it's going to cost. Now, he doesn't have his bird rights. He's not a player that you can just go out there and throw a lot of money and doesn't hit the cap for. So it could be a little bit tricky, but I think they're prepared to do the right move when it comes to Malik Monk. I think they know that, I said this earlier in the week. I mean, it really dates back to last season, in my opinion, because Malik Monk is just such an important piece for this team. I know there's so many people that want to see him start. He doesn't need to. He's a guy that, next to Fox and Sabonis, understands his role probably more than most players on this team and knows what he means to it. And I've called him the most important player on the team because, certainly once you get past Fox and Sabonis, to expect they're your best players. But Malik Monk might be your most important player because what he means to your team's success. If he's not playing well, or if he's turning the ball over, or he's struggling to score or be that playmaker, they struggle to kind of win games. But when he's on, he's absolutely part of not only the team's identity, but you might not see a more confident player in the league. So it's I think they know he's a key cog and a big part of the recipe of this team. And I think they're going to do everything they can to keep him.
We're talking this morning with Sean Cunningham. Sean, you kind of addressed where they've been weak this year, whether that's defense, athletic ability, size, maybe even some other offensive players that can help too. What would you do? Where do you think the area, and there's not one player that's going to check all the boxes, but where do you think they need the most help to get the most out of this current roster?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, to me, it's been, kind of dating back to last season. I've been kind of the one that, people I've talked to and even forming my own theories is, I think if there was one position or type of player that you begin a list of, I mean, I think certainly there's going to be several, but to me, it's been a solid bona fide wing player, a 3-and-D. You look at obviously somebody like Siakam, who obviously has struggled from the three this year, but over the course of his season, his tenure in the NBA, not only a champion and an All NBA player, but a guy who can get you a bucket. He can penetrate, he can ISO, and he can also on the defensive end, he can kind of bring it. He's not like a total shill defensively. I wouldn't say he's an OG Anunoby defensively, like an elite defender, but that long athletic body that they can add and that kind of, especially if you're keeping somebody like Keegan Murray, can almost make him more of the true stretch four. I personally, and some scouts I've talked to, don't love Keegan Murray, at least as he's currently developed as a true three, as opposed to possibly seeing him as more of the stretch four that he might be right now. Not to say he can't be that three later on, but it would certainly be part of his development and how you build your roster. But I think to me, it just sticks out like a sore thumb, a starting three, an absolute stud, upgrading that position. And, if that person can help you be a long body, athleticism, maybe be kind of like that alpha a little bit, where, this team kind of needs a dog still. And it would help go a long way to help their being able to help that Achilles heel of having to go up against those long athletic teams that hit first and, get out of that soft kind of behavior that you get. Because once they get hit in the mouth, man, we've seen this team kind of wilt a lot of times this year.
All right, last thing for you, Sean. We appreciate your time. Would Keegan be off limits for you?
Well, see, I'm of the minority. I know certainly that you talk to their side and they're going to tell you, no, Keegan's part of our future, all this stuff. It's we're not shopping Keegan Murray. And that very much is true. But they weren't really shopping Tyrese Halliburton either, if you know what I mean. So there's always a move to be made that, in my mind, nobody is ever untouchable, and that's including De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. Certainly, there are guys that are more untouchable than others, but there's always a move to be made. So, but the reality is, they would much rather keep Keegan Murray in a Sacramento Kings uniform because he's under team control. He has a great rookie contract, and they think this kid can be an absolute stud, an all-star type player that pairs well with the core that they have. So certainly they're not looking to move him, but and to be honest with you, Jay, I don't see a move out there this season that can be made by including Keegan Murray. So I just don't see that happening, but certainly you never say never. I mean, like I said, Tyrese Halliburton brought you Domantas Sabonis. This franchise absolutely shifted course, and for the better, in my opinion. So I think there's always a chance, right?
Absolutely. And then we'll see how they do tonight. The up and down nature of this team. There's been more up, but those downs, man, they've been so bad on some of those nights, including the other night. How did you spend your time when they were down 50?
I spent my time trying to tune into the Golden Globes because I was done with this team very, very quickly. I was done with that game. It was kids and family night that night. And
sorry, kids. Sorry, family.
Yeah. I think that's some of the things that brought on the apologies, but
yeah,
it's weird. I mean, you've got teams that certainly have the number, and it has been a weird season. And, I think we've all kind of made reference to the fact that 21-14, better start, than last season. This team is almost an identical match to last season, but we didn't see them have 10 of their 14 losses be double figures, and 7 of them be by 17 or more points, and then 4 to the Pelicans, the team that just was up 50 on you, beat you by 33, but then by 36 the previous time. It's just wild. It's a wild season, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you are kind of what you are, and I kind of feel sorry for the Detroit Pistons tonight because I'm expecting the Kings to be angry and to come out and kind of rectify what happened just the other night. And if you're looking at this team from from 50,000 feet up, and you're saying, oh, your record's fine. You're sitting here 5th in the West. It's probably you're just grouped into a bunch of teams in the West that you don't know what they truly are. I mean, look at Phoenix right now and some of the ups and downs that they've had with injuries. And does anyone really know what they are? Does anyone really know what Golden State is? I mean, Golden State struggling, going to get Draymond Green back. Certainly you can see them doing well. The Lakers just won the freaking in-season tournament and looked like they had turned things around. And now they look like they're going to fire Darvin Ham in about 24 minutes. So it's like, I think there's just so many teams that you don't know what quite they are yet. And, and speaking to some of the players over the past week, even before the debacle that was the loss to the Pelicans, they feel like they're part of it. And look, I think people are feeling a lot better if all of a sudden they can rattle off one of those, win 7 of 10 games and okay, we're fine. But the reality is, it's like, no, you still have those same problems and you have to go out and try to resolve them, because even though I said before the season, Jay, I think that you can sustain better playoff success this year, even if you don't finish with the record that you did last year. But what will that ultimately mean? You're really just kind of counting on this core developing and staying together and hopefully making a push. So if they're gonna really truly change their identity, they're gonna have to make a move here, and I think the front office knows it.
Well, we're a month away to see if they're going to do that. Sean, we always appreciate checking in with you. Thanks for getting up early, and we'll see you soon.
Anytime, Jay. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. That's Sean Cunningham joining us. We will break here. More on Sactown Sports. We'll check in with Sean Salisbury. Talk some football. That is next.
On the move? Got somewhere to be?
Take Sacramento Kings basketball with you. The Sactown Sports app will let you stay connected to your passion. Never miss a moment of Sacramento Kings